So, first of all, good morning. It's interesting times at the moment, and you see the EWNG email address will be appearing at various stages. And as I'll pick going along, we are always looking for new members and new people to actually present and speak during the for future sessions. This is the first one of what we're doing. So we've got a small panel with people as well. We've got Dave West, who's EWEG member, and we've got Mike Roebuck from Shirley Parsons Associates from Aylesbury, the global recruitment organisation, to chip in and hopefully take some of the questions that, or outputs from some of the questions we've got. So the first thing is, where do we sit? Those that aren't familiar with things, how is this group progressed and what's its history? This history we're actually quite sure about. We have tried to find the terms of reference for it from the past, and then over the last 20 years they've somehow become missing. So we've been working off our own terms of reference based upon the experience of the group. And the current review that IOSH is looking to put together does take on board that industry and things have changed. Most of the time the group will actually is asked to present at branch meetings, but they tend to be regarding an environmental update. Now, what we mean by an environmental update, I'm not always sure about. Is it on waste sector? Is it on general environmental legislation? Is it on compliance? So that's always been the question. Our initiatives have therefore been limited. They have been supporting branches, and we have actually, with both the IOSH Public Sector Group and also the Chartered Institute of Waste Management, did this training session for the waste collection service about 5-6 years ago, which we know we did launch out to a number of organisations, given to all local authorities. That was in the waste, local authority primarily waste collection domestic services, and it was given free of charge. It was done through the IOSH charitable framework. So, but IOSH does have 18 industry-specific groups. We are all volunteers, and we all serve on a committee. Now, the committee rules have been tightened up recently, and now we are talking about a 3-year period to be on a committee. So that's actually to hopefully designed to freshen things up across the board. It means a lot of experience potentially can be lost. So we're very keen to engage with people now before we all reach our 3-year limit or 6-year limit. We can serve two terms to actually support people. So the 18 specific groups, and the link to the bottom does cover them. It links to there's broadcasting, telecommunications, financial services group, sports grounds and events group, and the fire risk management group, for example. And the IOSH Group's main page publicises benefits of joining a group. It's being invitation to regular networking events, seminars and site visits. As an international group, we have struggled with site visits for 5 years because generally people have limits, especially those who work in the public sector, and because we have a public services group as well in IOSH, have limitations on transport and travelling, especially in the last 4 or 5 years. And that's meant that these events tend not to have been successful. The chance to contribute to legal consultations have a direct impact on your industry. We have taken part in the COVID-19 WISH review in terms of the new guidance for managing waste collections and landfill operations, etc. And waste transfer stations and household waste recycling centres successfully. So IOSH contributed to that. However, we don't always support everything for how it's written, because we have to stand by the IOSH mantra as well, what we believe is acceptable. We can input and influence to a certain point, but we can't take responsibility for other organisations. So we do take part and engage, and we were supported again by the centre of IOSH to do that. It gives us opportunities to join campaigns and projects that champion high standards in your industry. And this is part of the concern of our group, that when we talk through it further, what is our industry? And find a help with developing and maintaining your professional status. And again, we'll come to that, especially with the other review going on regarding professional grading, professional status. So those IOSH members on the call, I do commend you to go to that information, to that resource, and to feed back into that process. And that's very much a corporate message. So I've covered all that. So the IOSH strategy, our aim is to support members, branches and groups wherever they are in the world. to engage with external organisations to promote the positive benefits of health, safety, and environmental management within the workplace. To seek to support the IOSH's range and distribution of products and services, and to keep up with changes in information, communication technology, and related application for the benefit of IOSH members. So that's the, so part of this builds on this IOSH strategy of enhancement, collaboration, and influence, which is the strapline for the 2022 strategy. Then we will engage with external organisations to promote the positive benefits of health, safety, environmental management within the workplace, and we'll obviously protect and promote health and well-being. I think that is, so again, we're talking about, does environmental compliance cover well-being of people working? So again, we're working with this, what is the board, and this holistic approach to what the sector is. And I say 9,000 members have actually linked up to wanting information from us, and we do a regular newsletter, comes from our committee, and a committee made with things that are relevant. That's quite a large piece of work. And we are international, and this is I think at the point where I started as coming on as chair, started realising that the fact we're global, but secondly, what do we mean by environmental management, and what tools to health and safety people that have environment in their job have as well. So that also has been something of a concern. So I found out here, going into this piece of work here, that although we were giving health and safety advice in terms of refuse collection services and transport at landfill, the discussions went on to actually how a landfill site was designed, how it was, bear in mind in Georgia, they don't have quarries to fill in, they dig holes in the ground to actually create landfill sites in the ground. What they're doing with how they're keeping surface water and leachate apart, what's happening to the methane being created, and all these questions about the technical process, how it's being captured, and the energy management around it. And that's taking you outside the roles of purely a compliance role for environmental management. And again, for a business who is maybe a health sector where where the environmental impact is around carbon emissions, what skill sets do we have to be delivering for that? So again, a very large area. So if we consider where does IOSH fit with all this? Where does EWMG fit? This is the IOSH strategy. And this again, this is the main areas they're working on a global basis. So we look at this side of it, we're seeing that in terms of environmental management, you can say that aspect of it is somewhere within sustainability. Because the focus here, of course, has been on business, has been human sustainability, because it is how do we look after the health of people. So again, that's the driver there. How do we match these priority areas in with our work stream has been part of the challenge. So they got us all thinking, and we think that the group is covering at least the work of 3 groups, which is why, although we get very good feedback from all of you as group members, we realise that we aren't delivering and ticking everyone's boxes and actually facilitating, because the groups are about facilitation, engagement of people. We don't think we're actually necessarily doing that across the piece. And we think that obviously we've got the members whose roles include providing environmental management practice, advice and audit. And this is where I think that we're into, this does link into sustainability, it does link into engineering as well, in terms of improving how operations change. We then have members who are providing occupational health and safety advice in the waste management sector. So these are health and safety people who work in what is considered environmental industries. And then those people work in extraction and manufacturing processes, industries with high environmental impact. So we actually do wonder if all these things are the same, and we need to be considering each one of these as we go along. So if we could have the first poll, please. And if people could please all vote on this, where you think you fit. So we've got 49% providing environmental management practice, 31% working in the waste and recycling service, and 20% who work in industry with high environmental impact. that's kind of the split I thought we would be getting. Thank you very much. We have a second poll, don't we? I think for the same time, please, Dimple. Can we lock those answers, please? And can we actually share the results? Wow, that's telling me that from those of you here, there's a perception that IOSH does need to provide environmental management advice and support within its own right, because only very few of you are actually using in a second profession. I am actually in, before people want to say anything else, I am actually in a chartered profession for the Institute of Mining Materials and Metallurgy. So I've got an engineering side from a high risk, a high activity sector as my second chartered professionship. Thank you very much. If we can stop, if we can put that one around. Can I invite Dave to come in, Dave West to come in? Any questions at this stage? Dave, can you unmute and say anything?
Not at West at the moment. We've just had one question based on the email address on the website. I've just pointed out that the email address is new and we're just looking at how we can update that on the main website.
Yeah, if I can come in as well, Dave, and why we're proactively doing it now is the review, because this is all back on the review of the sector groups, and the response is telling me already that we are three groups, at least three groups in one. That there's a very limited time frame. The group has to respond back to IOSH by the 5th of June. So if people have got questions and comments, they can put in the comment section. We will download and save that knowledge as well. But the email address is there, people want to use. That will come to a member of the EWMG group rather than the networks officer, who covers about 10 groups, and they all do wonderful jobs. So that's one of the reasons we've got this email address going for this particular review. So I do thank the question being asked.
Can I also ask that any of the poll questions, if you could just use the poll and not type the answer in the Q&A, as it won't get registered. Thank you.
Okay, Mike, do you want to come at this stage as well for something? If you can unmute and say something.
Yeah. Yeah, just to, I suppose, introduce myself. I work at Shirley Parsons. We're dedicated health and safety recruitment company. So I'll be well placed to answer any of your hiring questions. Obviously, it's peculiar times for everyone at the moment, so that's I'll be best placed to answer those questions because I'm talking to the job market every day. So yeah,
it's fair to say, Mike, you are on LinkedIn. If you want to speak to him directly, Mike is on LinkedIn. I do speak to Mike on LinkedIn on a regular basis. So yeah, the days now saying, can I have your email address, or think of the past, because we have the technology and the name there to get hold of people.
Yes, so, yeah, we do. Yeah, I mean, you can, yeah, anyone can add me on LinkedIn.
I'm one of those awful people that as the session goes on, I see people's names now to LinkedIn as we're talking. Quite rude of me, probably. Thank you, Mike.
That's all right. No problem. No problem.
So we go back to the presentation. So the first sector is those people who, which is 49% of you, who may have IEMA membership and or chartered environmentalists, because we do have a challenge here about chartered environmentalists that we've been asked to become involved in. So again, next poll, please. Can we have the next poll, please, Dimple? So the key questions are, number one, do you provide environmental management practice? So what is your primary work activity? Management practice advice or audit. So the audit comes in that. Then the second one is your technical support. And this is a very interesting question because with IOSH looking to raise the bar to level 7 for charter membership, that is very much around management rather than compliance. So people purely doing compliance, which tend to be a level 6 from the academic area reviews. Obviously, we're seeing this what is added value, and you know, it's back to this role. Are we internal policemen? It's great to see technical support. And again, if any people want to share what their technical background is in the comment section, where they provide technical support, when you go out on site or somewhere and you actually say how to change something, you know, provide new motors, new equipment, new ways of actually providing as I had to in Georgia, provide advice on how they're managing a landfill site or not, then I'd be very interested in any comments on how you do that and what your background education is to that as well. Thank you. Can we end that? Have the results yet? And I'll let everybody else. So thirdly is, we're looking at the second, members whose roles include environmental management practice advice in all sectors. So we've just covered that. Then those people who provide occupational health and safety advice, waste management companies, selection disposal. Obviously, this is the area of those people who work in local authorities, and the public sector will probably be involved in a great extent. And the skill set here was very much around, please be compliance, but how many people can actually provide work actually in management? How many people actually will be involved in writing training programs, delivering training, etc., as well to people, as well as other advice there. And how much of this advice actually can be synthesized with supervisors? I asked a question again about that. And then finally, which is the newest one of the three that we picked up on, I know at least we have where I worked in, is those people who are actually working in this area there. For my first 17 years, I worked for a company called Imerys Minerals, once known as English China Clays. And I was a Section 98 manager in those days, or the Section 102 under the quarries regulations, if I could be really pedantic. And that role as a manager, I was actually responsible. There was a very interesting webinar just 2 days ago, and it was talking about management of COVID-19 aimed at health and safety people. And the question was your responsibilities, meaning us as health and safety people. And the next slide then talked about all the responsibilities that were management. And I did ask that question. These are all management functions. I have got articles going on LinkedIn rather talking about the role of management and the role of what the E is in the environment. So again, this is a whole new area there. We have one member of the group who works actually who actually has experience in working with the Institute of Quarrying, which is interesting. At this point, David, do you want to come in? Dave, another question has come in as well, I think, hasn't it?
Yeah, we've got one question. It's off an anonymous attendee. I am a practitioner grade level with IEMA and a chartered member with IOSH. The perception, I suppose, is that IOSH is predominantly health and safety based. The chartership with IOSH is not reflective of my environmental leading role. How do we influence that to be reflective of my environmental practices?
Let's look at the slides coming down further, because the concern I have is that environmental is not a tag on the health and safety. Anyone that's done an environmental management or sustainability and environmental management master's degree realise that in terms of the amount of teaching involved and learning involved, it's completely massive. When you're providing advice on environmental management training and the technical side of it, then we're actually going to a slightly different area. And ultimately it's horses for courses. And I think part of the information here and part of the review of the groups as well, which I think we'll be putting together, is I'm very keen that IOSH actually works with people like IEMA. And I think that there should be, maybe we should have more cross-professional body groups working together. So for solutions, etc. But the other thought is how the Institute of Mining, Minerals and Metallurgy went. They actually merged together as institutions. So I actually had to keep two memberships going in one particular kind, both in the mining sector, one for UK and one for international. So the question is, what, do you actually have a compliance-based management, well-being, sustainability group, professional body, and have one group doing all that? The fact the health and safety world, we also have competition from the United States, from their AWSP, and we've got IRRSM in the UK, tells me there is challenge even within the health and safety profession on a global basis. So I would suggest maybe that charter membership in both is appropriate, because I suspect health and safety and environmental management are two separate disciplines, especially with health and safety very much aligned to the well-being and the human side, working with this director of people stuff that was expressed at conference. So again, we have to think where we're going. And going on to additional groups that we haven't even thought about. Thanks to discussions, we have another technology going on about how we're actually going to mine landfill sites. So we have another aspect of technical competence now. It's at the Institute of Mining Engineers. IOM3, Institute of Coring. Who leads on this? How do we involve with that? So I think part of it is how can IOSH embrace networking across pan-industry bodies. One of the reasons laws were set up for the waste sector was because IOSH at the time, which is in 2003, it was unable to start up a new group purely for local authority health and safety people, professionals, plus the waste managers, because we felt without the waste management compliance, where are we going with things? Because we wanted that cross-professional aspect to it. So these things I don't think are as clear, and it's how, and IOSH does, we know, have relationships with over 2,000 groups globally, other groups, but these were not all formally recognised. We actually had an informal relationship with the Chartered Institute of Waste Management. So we always pinned our bar from EWMG on working with the WISH Forum, and so we were very much the second of the three groups, which was looking after the health and safety of people working in the waste management industry, which really ticked two of the IOSH mantras groups. But those of you, of course, who are environmental consultants that would actually have one foot in IEMA, and I'm actually been thinking about going for IEMA Charter membership myself, by the way, or CIWM membership, because I realise not every profession can cover everything, and I think we have to fit in with the global body's professional side of it. So how can we achieve that? And I then go on to the next stage I was thinking about is, you have the construction, we have construction waste management plans, etc. So we link in with the construction group very much as well. So actually, who is doing that? Is that part of an environmental manager's role, or is that an operations manager's role? So again, we talk about roles and functions and knowledge. And again, we want your views and your thoughts. Very well, there's 49% of you here on this call, on this conference, are actually working on the environmental side of the business. So it'd be really great to have your responses, how you want it to be reflected. And we'd also be very interested, obviously we'd love somebody to come in as a group, as a member, but very keen to the earlier slide. And the question I keep asking, sorry. The question I keep asking when we're going back to the, to here, is how does environmental management, purely environmental management without the health and safety, how do we fit in with this? How can that element of the EWMG come up with a strategy to actually link that together? And that's as far as we got when we spoke last in December about moving this forward. So, have the next question, can we please?
Yeah, we have, Mark's made a point of saying that with the review, you suggest the EWMG is more than one group in it, but he points out correctly, it's certainly definitely two, and that's environment and waste management. I think we can all suggest as we will get that list will get bigger and bigger. We've also had a question off Jason White. I'm a health and safety practitioner with tech member status of IOSH, but I'm increasingly being asked to assume environmental management responsibilities. I have an IOSH cert in environment management and currently studying for diploma in the same. Is there an equivalent IOSH membership structure from the environmental perspective, or should I look at IEMA?
IOSH is looking, if I haven't read the full detail, alternative routes to membership. There is, I think, within the review of grades consultation going through right now, because I believe that we should enable people to have different memberships in there. But it goes back to this scope, is that how it's so I don't want people to be leaving. I want more people to come into IOSH. I actually get the concept of health, safety, environment with well-being as a compliance, holistic sustainability role, profession. I see a broader side of things. Unfortunately, we are in professional groups that do have their niches, and all professional groups, institutions, they are commercial organisations, or they are looking for their own unique selling point. My advice is, I would say, definitely do not leave IOSH, definitely stay with IOSH. Please engage in this process that we're doing to review the groups, because I think we have to be a broad church and have to accommodate all of this, because people, especially with businesses, companies will only pay for one professional subscription, which I recognise as well. So that's why I'm being very mindful of saying, join a second institution. And of course, careers are always flux. We tend to move in and out of different areas. I've moved into 3 or 4 different areas in my life and different interests. And you tend to fall out of one institution and then you end up being in another. And then you want to go back. And if you go back and you've come out, you may have to go through the whole membership rejoining process again. So join IEMA as well. It depends how much you want. I mean, IEMA can provide far more, probably, you know, they have, going through their website, they are very mean with their website. There's very little free stuff, or what we call material that actually is freemium, which is you register to the website and you get some amount of information. Those people that have well-being as part of their jobs, you go to the CIPD website for the HR profession, there's a lot of stuff that comes on their freemium role, which means you register with a website and you get a lot of guides and information that you don't get as much as members, but you get more than if you don't register. Okay, can we actually have the results for this one, please? Because this is a very important, this is the crux of it. And this may answer some of your other questions from people that people have asked earlier. 71 of 93 have voted so far. So 3/4 you think we should have technical competency for those working in environmental management. That infers we have a gap in that. We have a gap between what we are delivering and what we have. So if we consider the IOSH competency framework as written at the moment, we have this. So I would argue that for health and if you were to put environmental management there, I would suggest you put the word environmental law, because there is, and I think part of the challenge we have here is environmental management. There used to be environmental sections. I think it was section 6 of the Health and Safety at Work Act that was repealed when they put in place the Environmental Protection Act in 1990. So you've got environmental protection legislation, which is a huge field of legislation in its own right, probably greater than health and safety law, and probably, especially as a global organization, very different across the world. The types of risks you are managing are different from a health and safety point of view. We are talking about possibly greater risks. There are obviously crossovers, and the incidents involved tend to be off-site rather than on-site. When they're on-site, they tend to be considered as health and safety side of it. The culture, I'd suggest, is possibly different as well. I think people are greener by nature. I always say, and I get told off for it, that health and safety is perceived as rather boring and bland, but apart from COVID-19, which I will throw in here, but environmental management is green and sexy. You mentioned green there, and sustainability, people get popular. And sustainability is a very small little wedge there, because I don't think environment management sits as a little part of sustainability. I think it's this is why I tend to think that we have to work out how we actually put this in for environmental management. Okay, the next one, if we talk about it, we talk about these are common behavioural things, and they are common across this. They're also common around quality, because I know some of you have got quality roles as well. So exactly, these are also key and important. And then we've got finally the ability here. And I would suggest, obviously, for strategy for environmental management, the technical skills required are different to that of health and safety. And like I think business continuity, I think health and safety and environmental management sit together. They often sit with the same people, because we're, as a profession, especially at management level, you have the opportunity to be you have access to every part of the organization. And very few jobs have that. We are extremely lucky to have that in our profession. And that is something that we don't actually maybe advertise enough, in my opinion. So how we link to other groups. I'm seeing definite relationships with the public sector group. I do perceive that if we have, for those people involved in waste collection, it would be crazy that when a service comes in house, all of a sudden the influence isn't the EWMG, it becomes the public sector group, and if it comes back in house, it's different. And of course, if the council for waste collection is always going to be public sector, then you've got 2 groups anyway. One is client and one is as the contractor. So we have a challenge there with it. There is interest with the rural industries group, because rural industries does cover things like horticulture, and in many local authorities, horticulture is part of an overall environmental department. There we are. This is where the word environmental does come to play again, because environmental also sits there with environmental health officers, of course, but of course they deal with food safety, they deal with taxi licensing, as well. So you see how I keep asking the word, where does environment fit? It's a huge thing in a small, with a small and relatively big group with just 7 volunteers as in the group. So Royal Industries Group, we touched base with there. The construction group, I've touched on construction waste management there as well. And Hazardous Industries Group, we have one of our committee members works in a global chemical plant. I think it's a coma site, I believe. And those effects, obviously, as he said to me, I could be the Hazardous Industries Group or the EWMG. I could do either group I could really contribute to. So again, we have a crossover into that. So there's an opportunity to cross over. So the next questionnaire, please. And again, please put your comments. I do want to have a list of comments if you, and especially if you disagree, because I'm just throwing questions at you. I'm trying to, as it were, muddle the still water, if I can mix my metaphors. But it's really your input, those of you on the call. So we've had that question. We've had that question, haven't we?
It's mainly not questions, there's comments. We have one of Shawaz, who's basically saying he's an environmental engineer and being involved in health and safety management. Along with environmental management, he has an NVQ level 5 diploma in occupational health and safety and grad IOSH. So he's going for he's an associate member of IEMA, but this is the sort of thing that we're seeing across the board. People are having a mix of both IEMA and environment. And it does fall into roles in different ways, and it's about getting that right mix. We've had a comment off Mary. I think the core and behavioural competences are transferable across environmental and health and safety, which she agrees that there is a technical competency that could have an environmental law wedge.
Yep. I mean, the challenge I have in the professions, it has to be, it's very key for employers know the risks of their business, and I think they get the people that respond to their risks as they perceive in their business. So, Mike, do you have a thought at this stage about that? Anything on that so far?
Yeah, I suppose it's just an overall point. I suppose the environmental and health and safety are quite linked. From a hirer's point of view, you could only benefit yourself if you are to join both industry bodies. So yeah, I would say it's only kind of a benefit to you in your career if you were to join both industry bodies, I would say.
Yep, thanks, Mike. Thanks for that. Have we got a, so what's the next question? How many questions have we run with at the moment?
We've just had 2 more comments. We have Stuart. He's an environmental consultant, and the bulk of his role is due diligence. So it's a mixture of environmental and health and safety liability advice as part of his business and real estate transactions. We've got an anonymous attendee who's stated, perhaps part of the problem is with the title of our professional body, IOSH, no mention of E. If IOSH is serious about increasing importance of environmental and sustainability, perhaps we should be acknowledged in the institute title as well.
But the thing is, and this is the challenge we've got, is that if you follow the strategy of IOSH, it is a well-being base. It's about, we have to go back to the data that days lost to absence in the UK is 20% down to safety and 80% down to health in the workforce. So IOSH is focusing on that. That's why there's so much on stress, mental health issues there. So I think the strategy has very much in that direction there, because, and that is working with CIPD, which happened at conference last year. You might remember those at conference, extremely interesting Q&A at the end of the first day, talking about this moving to this role of director of people, or linking at human sustainability on that aspect. Another Q&A's come in there, I think, as well.
Yeah, a question's been asked, doesn't it link to a telecommunications group, this group?
Do we link to the telecommunications group? No, but I have met the chair, but that's not the answer they want. No, we've had no, in terms of networking for any activity or any meeting, the answer is no, we haven't yet. So if there is an area of interest where you think that we should do, please put a comment in the comments or the chat, and we'll pick up on the chat a bit. We'll pick up on the chat later on. So this is about networking together. So actually, if you're a member of IOSH, we've got an MOU with IEMA, for example, so that we can actually look at how can we have mutual areas of interest. Some professional bodies do allow membership, shared membership even, or membership of one does qualify to a certain level in another institution. I think I like to think really open conversation with professional bodies. Two heads are always better than one, I always think. And if you can pay for, if we end up paying for one, especially as we move now more remotely with stuff, with less need for physical presence, I think there's opportunity. So again, 71 voted, 72 voted. That is great. We will hold it there, please, Dimple. That's really good. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. We will feed that into our response to Duncan at IOSH. Thank you. So I think we've covered that question there. As I said, I think we covered that a bit earlier on the previous poll. We're ahead of ourselves here. I do apologise. But if we consider obviously the other big challenge we've got in a second, right? So can one group cover everything with an E in it? I think we have said no. And should it? I think the answer has been, I think in the feedback we'll pick up from there, because I think people do what the multiple roles you're in there. We have to review how we're going to do this. The comment is we have at least 2, if not 3 groups. I'm happy to go with that. Have we got the right specialists, and what have we missed? So some more questions there, David, have come in.
Yeah, we have one. Actually, we have one from Peter. It's actually relevant to the last poll that you did. He's an environmental consultant, and he's a member of several different institutions, which makes his CPD returns absolutely a nightmare. His wish would be for a pan-environmental body, and have one CPD scheme. I think that 72% answer in the poll actually reflects that as well.
I know how we achieve it, because the environmental body, you've got the CIWM, we've got,
you have CIEH, CIWM, CIWEM, IEMA, yep. IOA, CIBSE, EI.
And although we haven't got a poll on this, if anyone could actually say, answer the question, is there discussion going on between those groups? It would be nice to know what discussions there are going on. CIA should be separate. It's a separate discipline completely. I mean, I would ask people to consider, and this is where we're coming from, is environment, is it and should it be core to IOSH and the IOSH profession, noting the environmental professional bodies? You know, is there enough clutter for another group involved in there? With whole degrees in environmental engineering and sustainable environmental management, what technical knowledge should be contained in a health and safety focused degree, and what should be left out? Are all those in ESH and QESH roles primarily compliance, management, or leadership roles? If the role is an audit or compliance role, what are the career routes available to reach the head of audit role? So if you're in a compliance role, how do you get to the top job? Maybe compliance is with, for example, financial audit. How do you get that job? Because we have to consider, I think, employability. Many of you in the room, in the consultancy roles you are talking to people on the top table of organisations, toe to toe on a par. And if in an audit role, what non-health and safety qualifications, professional membership do you have to complement your own professional portfolio? So what other qualifications do you need? And what does the industry want? What is environment by an industry? And it's this whole word that we use. I always said health and safety is not an industry in its own right. It's a skill set in different industries. I don't think I think you have to have this big reliance on how much we learn in the job and experience. So we're talking about level 7. So the challenge is at level 7 in terms of learning and also working. So what we expect is people to actually be able to use new theories, methods, techniques, and new situations, in effect, problem solve. Okay. So we're talking about how do we problem solve at level 7. So we've always said it's a diploma related profession. If we were to become a master's level profession, many of you are working at that level already in what you're doing. I mean, can there be appropriate accredited programs by professionals to work in your field, because we all want extra information, and we have lifelong learning, which I do recognize. Okay, can we, thank you. Can we keep the poll up there? Can we keep it up there as the results up? Can I come in here with Mike? Mike, hi, Mike. That is really interesting.
Yeah.
That is telling me that over 70% of people with a qualification, it's not a health and safety qualification, they're coming in, their key qualification is environmental aspect, because in effect it's telling me that with a small amount of environmental management knowledge you're given, insufficient for the role. And that's supported by the second half, that as I learned with my career, it was doing the job. When in my case, it's when things went wrong. I had to have worked with local authority and the EA on many occasions of those people listening. I'm not perfect by any means, but that's interesting that we are learning and continuing learning. That's interesting, isn't it?
It is, yeah. Yeah.
I didn't expect that. Well, part of me did. Part of me hoped for that. I was actually hoping we'd get that result, because it does tell me that you guys, many of you have actually got a high level qualification in environmental management, or you're actually using IEMA. Dave, you got a thought? Any thought there, Dave? That take you by surprise?
It did actually. It does have a food for thought, and it does lead. We are getting quite a few questions, you know, due to the amount of those questions. I can't read them all, obviously, but some of them are going down this line, where we do have those joint responsibilities of safety and environment. There's the questions being asked, you know, where does this lie with IOSH, and actually equaling it out across the board. With the environment side as well as the safety. From the waste industry background myself, I found both the environment and the safety were pretty much equal in what we had to do. And as I've done some presentations at IOSH Groups, and there is a very large amount of people who work in the waste industry, whether it be for a local authority or a private company. And there does seem to be showing us a bit of an imbalance from the questions that we are getting. I
agree. That'd be really interesting. So thank you for all of you. If we can hide that poll result there, please. And we'll save the, we are going to use all these results, by the way, all these feedback in the response to IOSH. So, and then the bit kind of for us is that we actually do want to have more of these webinars. This was a starter, it was a tester, but because we have this tight deadline, we needed to get some response from the membership, and there was no other way of doing it. So I do appreciate everyone for it. And this may, for some of you, realise you may think you don't get enough from the EWMG, why we actually aren't delivering maybe in where you want. So I'm happy to, the committee would love to hear from each of you if you've got an idea for a presentation, something you think is topical to your sector you work in, whichever part of the E you work in. I'm sure there'll be people who do want to take part. So please use that email. That will come back. I will get a copy of any emails coming in to take it forward. There's some more questions there, Dave. I'm seeing on my screen a number of questions have come in. I'll take some more.
Yeah, again, a lot of them are reference to crossover. We've had one off Robert Binns. Do you think the focus of environmental management is beginning to cross over into health and safety as a standard? My role in managing a waste transfer site combines both subjects in depth, which seems to be the norm in this industry, and is currently studying his environmental diploma to help with his role. Again, I'll reiterate what I said earlier. When working in waste, when I first started, the E was very small, and a few of the roles that I've held, the E was always smaller than it is. My belief, it is starting to grow and grow, whether it be from site waste management and dealing with the waste on sites, to then going into aspects and impact surveys. I do believe the E is growing, and I do think that needs to be acknowledged. But we've already seen from this webinar, there are some people who are dealing, if I was to go into, to be asked to be doing certain elements of environments, I would be out of my competency. When I worked at a private waste company, we had actually a separate department that looked after all the high level audits and all the management of environment as a group, and they were specifically qualified in environments. But there was another stage down where the health and safety advisor practitioner was expected to have a certain knowledge of environments.
Mm-hmm. Can I come in? I see a question here, mostly from Shahwaz. Most of the construction industry environment is being under the umbrella of HSE, where H&S practice being dominant over environmental practices and hardly one or two person recruited managing environmental issues, where an H&S safety professionals recruited in large numbers. This is approach fair enough for environment and sustainability. This is where I picked up somewhere. I was talking to somebody yesterday who within our group, their role is management across the piece. And they actually, it's down to them to get the right technical people in. With those of you who are environmental consultants in there, you will get the phone call in theory, you only have the answer. Because I think, as the polling is said here, that if you've got a health and safety background, unless you actually have a further qualification, you will struggle. And this also may go down to, depending what country you're in, how the enforcement takes place. Am I right in saying that an environmental legislation, with the health and safety legislation, we've got section 7 and section 8, where in fact the employee can be held criminally liable. With environmental legislation, this is showing my lack of knowledge in this sector, not being a consultant. Is there the same type of legislation against individuals, or is it a corporate risk rather than an individual risk in a different percentage? Does that mean in fact that because personally there'll be a personal risk, he can say personal risk over corporate risk? I'm happy to take a comment on there. Thanks, Stewie. Thanks again. Yeah, I fully agree with you. CPD across 2 professions is great. Thank you very much indeed. Phil Beaumont. Phil, thanks for that. Yeah, and that's noted. I'm not afraid with being more than one profession, providing we all talk to each other. Anonymous attendee about membership grades. Interested Dave Buchanan, management of risk, fully agree with that. So you've got the Institute of Risk Management, of course. That takes you up, but very much with risk management, we are going to financial risk as well. So I have looked into that. I looked to accreditation a degree course for Institute of Risk Management, and the standards they were wanting, it goes right into different areas of risk. The biggest risk most businesses seem to have is basically it's on the financial core. And Institute of Risk Management is based right in the City of London, so you do tend to think about areas there. But that's but yes, quite right with that comment there.
I'm just reading.
Any more questions you want? They're all coming in. We've got a minute to go, and there's questions coming in.
Okay, I'm going to read this one because it's quite interesting. I apologise for the pronunciation name. Dr. Abilash, can we have a future webinar session on how to manage the waste generated from COVID-19, especially disposal of face masks, gloves, and other PPEs used from an industrial and office setup perspective? I think that's a really valid and obviously valid question. I'd be quite interested in that one.
If there's a speaker out there, Dave, we'll take them. And the next one, like Mike, if you're there, please, Mike, a question as well. We'll take this the last question because we are at time. Yeah. What I'll ask Dimple that if we can actually save all the questions as well as all the comments and the response from the polls, we can then maybe interrogate and maybe on the IOSH WMG LinkedIn page put some more comprehensive responses to those that we haven't answered here. And that's be a bit of a group though. I know Mary's listening in who takes stuff. That'll have to be all of us, I think. A question here from an anonymous attendee. I've started witnessing more and more employers merging our health and safety roles with environmental sustainability and quality. With that in mind, how will this requirement affect the future roles of certain professionals who are core specialists of one of the above skill sets? So that may be they're not core to the other ones.
Yeah, I mean, there are certainly more and more companies looking for all three. Yeah, typically companies would favour one of the three out of the others, and they're looking to get one of them right before the others. So we get a lot of companies approaching us looking to get a health and safety person in for the first time into their business. So they look to get their safety right first before to environmental and quality.
I think there's a role here that many of us in organisations are not in management roles. When I work for a local authority, those who know me know where I live and roughly where we both are. And I'm seeing some of the practices. I saw a practice that I wasn't really comfortable with. Mary, we'll take your one in a minute. Thank you. The question I've got is very much that I think there's management. I think the management side of it, and we should have the skill sets to actually do that and to engage professionals in the different areas as well. So our knowledge at management level, at level 7, needs to be, we need to know a friend who can. We need to know that person, the skill set is who do we know to come in, rather than have we got the knowledge. And maybe, especially once you're in a management role, you actually, especially by those who get a director role, you end up being a director of, because directors, although you have a title of a director of an area, you'll be in board decisions covering every facet of the business. So you're expected to adapt and learn different skill sets without qualification. Maybe that's a debate or a challenge for another.
Yeah, perhaps. Yeah.
It's very quickly. Can somebody let Mary in, please? My screen, because I'm screen sharing. I'm struggling a bit here. Dimple, can you let Mary in, please? Mary Carter in. She's raised her hand.
Yep. Just allowed her to talk.
Hi, Mary. You still there?
Yep, I am. Question I would be asking that I'd be interested to hear from the EWMG members, how many of them work for a very small company where their role does cross over, and how challenging do they find that?
If you can put in the comment section for that, on that, or the chat blog for that as well. There's Melvin Atkins. Melvin, you want to say something as well? Is it an email? Can you send a question, Melvin, please? Because otherwise we're out of time now. So we'll take questions and we'll try and do a comprehensive feedback on it. There's one question here we had about someone asked about benchmarking. I would be happy to, if there's offline, send an email address and we will discuss maybe opportunity for benchmarking and how EWMG can do what benchmarking we're talking about in what level. We're happy to facilitate a look at anything, and if benchmarking is an issue, I'm sure maybe we can look about what can we do to put something together we can share across the profession. Dave, would you go with that?
Yeah. Reference that question. If anybody else, the email address is on there. If anybody else has got any questions, any support they need, as members of the group, this is what we're here to do. And if we cannot answer your questions, we can try and find the people who can and try and help you out. As my role as liaison officer, I'm here to help members, if they want to get presentations done or have webinars or actually do a webinar themselves, as I've spoken about earlier. This is a great opportunity, and really feel free to email the address that was on the screen. It's great CPD. And the really good thing from this is it's a very, very good networking opportunity. One of the important things for the group is actually to start getting people talking to each other and building up a network of people who can help each other and share good practice.
At this point, I'm going to thank everyone. Hands are going up, but we're out of time. And I know we have IOSH's limited places to discuss. I want to thank Mike and thank Dave for coming in. I want a big thanks to Dimple, because when we close this down, we'll all disappear. Dimple, is everything saved, by the way, in terms of questions and chats? So we managed to save everything. And all
yes, absolutely. Be available to you after.
If you can email me afterwards, that'd be fantastic, please.
No problem at all.
What I was going to say here, my final bit about the H&S and the E, when I work for a local authority, I'm actually in business assurance, I've been moved to. They had the risk register, and I said, where is your environmental where's your rating for environmental risk? And the comment was, well, nobody else has raised it, therefore it's not important, and they refused to put it on the risk register. So I sat there in disbelief. I was only a member of the EWMG. I just thought, you know what, you've got a waste service, you've got a waste transfer station that's actually over a adjacent to a major river. I just thought you haven't got it on your risk register. Now, whether that's changed since I left, I don't know, but that was a concern I had at the time. So I can't take any more hands. They're being raised, I know. So yeah, apologies for those I can't take them. We have to call it a day. Thank you for all of you who've taken part. Really appreciated, and I wish you the safe bank holiday weekend, and I hope that you're able to get out in some fresh air and not contaminate each other and not become contaminated. So good luck, stay healthy, and thank you all again. Take care. Bye.